Welcome, everybody. Greg Rock here with BPM Institute. And our Need to Know series this week is focusing all about how to be strategic about learning and development. And we're lucky enough to have Matt Donovan and Kevin Votrino with us from Excel Air. Guys, welcome and appreciate you spending some time with us. I'm going to jump right in. In your ebook, you cover some of the benefits. And I was wondering if you can recap for our members the top benefits in building an L&D program.
Yeah, so Kevin here, I'll lead this one off. It's a really great question because a lot of times people will say, well, why do I want to do this? What are the top benefits that I can get out of this? And that's a really difficult question to ask because you can use learning and development. You can implement programs to do so many things. It really depends on what are the organizational problems that you're trying to solve. And you can use learning and development in some ways to solve those problems. A lot of times it's going to be in concert with other things that you're doing, but really the benefits of your learning and development program are to solve business problems at your organization. And there's two really kind of high level applications that you can do with this. You've got the kind of more familiar, the one that people know as internal. So training internally, looking at the organization on the inside, the employees and the structure internally, and using learning and development to do things throughout the employee life cycle that help the organization. Important to remember, help the organization deliver business value. So if we think about the employee life cycle, you've really got kind of three, I'll call them events, so to speak. You've got hire, where the person comes into the organization. You've got the time that they're employed, and then you've got the end of employment. So if we think about hiring and the kinds of problems that you can solve or the benefits that you can get from learning and development, let's look at it through a couple different lenses. So the first lens is the organizational view. So what are the benefits of implementing an L&D program for the organization at hire? It's things like decreased onboarding time. Decrease costs. So using a learning and development program to decrease the time to profitability or proficiency for an employee. If it takes, without the program, 6 months to get someone able to do a job like a salesperson, able to be profitable in selling, if you can reduce that time, and we go into this in the ebook, a little bit more in detail. If you can decrease the time to profitability, there are a lot of benefits that has across your organization. The other thing is that it allows you to do is if you're able to, as an organization, hire someone knowing that you're going to be able to upskill them, you're going to build proficiencies that aren't there at the time of hire, you can focus more on, is this person a fit for our culture? Is this going to be a good organizational fit for this person? Are they going to help us achieve our mission? And especially right now with the way that the market is for labor, it's just give me somebody. And you don't get to think about these things, right? Like I need anybody that can come in and help because we're so underwater and we're so understaffed. So that's a really big benefit. On the employee side, you've got the smoother onboarding process. Nobody wants to come to a new job and spend the first week sitting looking around, well, where's this and what do I do and how do I use this system or things like that. So it's less stressful. You get to have more of an impact sooner. And if you think about applying it to like a construction type job, OSHA safety regulations, you're going to be safer if you have an L&D program than if you don't have one. A lot of places are required to do it, but if you think about it in terms of that, there are a lot of employee-centric benefits as well. And then if we think about when over the course of the employee's employment, the organization's going to benefit from an increased competitive edge, greater flexibility. So a lot of people say, well, how do you know that? And if we think about the pandemic, so companies that weathered the pandemic were those that could pivot. They upskilled their workforce to deliver value remotely. When in March of 2020, when the disruption happened, the organizations that succeeded were those that had the capability to go out, analyze what was happening and identify the opportunities that they could succeed at, and then upskill and reskill their workforce to meet the new need. So I think about like brewers and distillers. We're in New England, so we've got a lot of those around here.
Right.
How many of those businesses knew how to make hand sanitizer in March of 2020? None.
Right.
But they realized, okay, we're not selling beer to people in restaurants and things like that. We need a way to remain competitive. What can we do? What skills do we have? Okay, there's a big need for hand sanitizer. How can we reskill our distillers and our brewers to produce this to then remain competitive and maintain the organization? So things like that, just having that competitive edge of being able to pivot and having your workforce be able to scale up to pursue new things. And then, so on the employee side of that, it's, as an employee, I'm being continually invested in. I have greater job security. There's a plan and there's opportunities for me to advance. I'm less likely to leave. Mm-hmm. And then we think about end of employment, which is really coming out of what we just talked about with during the employment. You want to prevent or delay the end of employment activity. So for the organization, the longer you can keep someone employed, the greater return on investment you have in your L&D. So you don't have to, if you have to constantly replace people and hire new, that person that you hired in and you invested in, you don't have to every 3 years or every year retrain them on what the culture is. What are the basic things? Like, what are the internal processes that you can't just like source from an external candidate, that you were forced to develop internally. So then there's cost savings with retention, reducing turnover, and things like that. And also reducing the likelihood that that employee will look outside your organization for employment opportunities. Because very few employees are sitting there and just punching the clock and then waiting for their time to go home for 50 years and then retiring. Right. Especially with younger employees, they're looking for opportunities to advance. So if you don't provide them, you're just going to be upskilling them and training them for a job at another organization.
So the other side of it too is, and we don't really go into this in too much detail in the ebook, but there's also external benefits that we've really come across a lot. And it's the idea that you can actually use learning and development outside of your organization, perhaps with your customer base, your user base. And if you have a more highly trained user base, say you have a really feature-rich application that people are interacting with, the higher trained they are and the more they know how to use your application, they're more likely to be retained when it comes up for their renewal of their license or something like that. So there's actually a big external factor as well. And we really hope to be exploring that a little bit more in the future and probably writing another feature about it. It's really, how do you grow your market share and maintain your competitive edge externally by implementing L&D there?
Yeah, no, great point, guys. I think, there is a race for talent, right? And the younger generation, certainly guys much younger than me, they are looking for opportunities and they're looking to, work in places where they can grow and learn new things. And so certainly L&D is going to play a big role in that and in the retention of that talent and recruiting new talent. So thank you so much for that.